So hi, welcome. I didn't prepare a whole intro in Spanish. I'm sorry. I feel really bad after the few I had before. But yeah, I know just enough Spanish and enough Italian to be extremely confused and mix up words when I try either. So it's better that way, I think. So I'm from Belgium. I have a Catalan first name and an Italian last name, and I don't know any of these languages. But now I live in Switzerland, which is also very far away from here. I've been doing PHP and internet stuff for 10 years and in some, I guess, by now. I keep saying 10 years because I can't count anymore. And yeah, lately I've been working a lot on Symfony and especially Composer. And on the side, when I'm not doing open source, I try to run a business and to make some money as well, doing Symfony development and consulting. So, right. So I think those that didn't raise their hands, is it true you never used it at all? Who never used it? Please. Okay, that's cool. So to begin with, I think one thing I want to distinguish is the package versus dependency management. Are you those that never use Composer? Are you using Perl or are you using nothing? No. Who's nothing? Okay, cool. So maybe you don't have a bias for package management versus dependency, but the notion of package manager, usually it's something like apt-get or those that kind of manage package by package, where you say, okay, I want to install this and it's going to install that and the dependencies, but that's it. You kind of manage it granularly. While a dependency manager is more focused on the project and not the machine. So we really say, okay, I have this project with a set of dependencies, and I want to install all the dependencies for my project. So it's similar in concept, but it's a little difference that's good to understand. So the ecosystem is composed of three things. The main one is Composer, which is the main command line tool you interact with. It does all the installations of the dependencies. It's supposed to be easy to use. I mean, it depends on your, I don't know, maybe you're having a bad day and things break, but usually it works fairly well, I think. And I hear good things as well from people using Bundler or other tools from other languages that think Composer is not that bad. So, yay, PHP for once. And we try also to encourage best practices with it. So, it's a good way to, I don't know how to say this nicely, to force people into using good things in a way, because it gives me a platform to promote good stuff, just because I can kind of either document only the good stuff or just force you to use the good stuff because I don't implement the other ones. So yeah, it's a good way to kind of promote best practices at the community level. I mean, it's not just me; it's also others that help in that process. So all the PSRs, I guess you're familiar with those, most of you. So we support PSR 0 for the autoloading. There's also the upcoming, maybe possibly soon, PSR 4, which will be the new autoloading standard. So we will support that directly. SPDX is a licensing, it's a set of official license identifiers like MIT, BSD, you have so many variants of how to write those. So this is one page which gives you a unique identifier for every license so that everyone can use the same, and then hopefully one day we can do good stuff with that, automatically checking, if your project is GPL, for example, if you install a dependency that is not compatible with GPL, we can print a warning or something like that. But if we don't have official identifiers, it's impossible. Yeah, I'll get back to Semver later. The second pillar is packages, which is on packages.org, and it's like the main repository of packages. So it just contains most of the libraries, at least the open source one. And yeah, unlike Pair, if you knew Pair back then, or if you're still using it, maybe like the submission process to add a new package was kind of a pain. So there it's really open. You just one click, you submit your GitHub URL or something, and done. So it's open to everyone, which is good for like gaining traction and getting everyone to use it. Obviously, it's bad because you get also like people that produce not so good stuff to use it, and you know, everyone shares everything, and obviously there is good stuff, there is bad stuff, but that's okay. The third pillar is a bit less known, I guess, is Satis. It's a sort of mini packages like that you can set up for your private packages and for your non-open source stuff. So if you have internal company packages, and in some companies they actually only use this, or they have their own copy of like their own setup of packages that is not using any open source stuff at all. It's just internal stuff. So that makes sense. That's what some fancy people said about it a long time ago. These tweets are pretty old by now, but I don't know, if you don't trust me, you can maybe trust one of these. So I'll get to to how to use it, let's say, the basics. So first of all, like without really looking into what Composer does, the most basic thing is, I guess, what you will be exposed to first if you're using a framework, and like someone mentioned this morning, Cake, like new version of Cake is gonna use it. So that means like if you use Cake, suddenly you're forced to use Composer. So you're like, okay, I want to start a new project with the latest version. What do I do? I guess they'll have documentation for that, don't worry. But anyway, in most cases, what you do is you would just clone a repository. Then you have like this curl line, which is a slightly scary way to install it. You just download the script and execute it directly, and you shouldn't do that, but it's convenient, and most people do it anyway. But all it does, this script, assuming you trust me again, is it will just like check some PHP settings and warn you if you have incorrect settings. If all is good, you will just download this composer.far file in the current directory, and that's it. Like, it doesn't touch anything else in your system, so it's fairly non-invasive. Then, then pretty much all you have to do is saying php composer.far install. That will just start installing dependencies of that project. Now, there are a few things to note here maybe. So you have this like PHP and then some file name and then a command, and a lot of people get really confused at this point because they learn it this way, and then in some other blog post maybe you will just see like composer install. And I mean, if you know a bit of command line kung fu stuff, it's okay. It's fairly simple, but some people don't have like the basic knowledge there to really grasp what's happening. And really the basic is that you have, like, you call PHP and you tell it to execute this composer.far file, and then there are some arguments. Now, if you call just composer.far directly, if you're on a Unix system, it will work, because there is this shebang line on top that tells it should be execute that with PHP. If you rename the composer.far to composer, you can just call it directly, it still works. If you then move it to your like user bin or whatever directory, then you have this global composer executable basically. So these far files are just like packaged like a set of packaged PHP files put together that that becomes sort of executable. So this is like the easy way to demonstrate it, because it will work everywhere, but most likely you want to install it globally somewhere to have it easily accessible, and not just keep reinstalling it in every project. So once you're done installing your dependencies, you end up with this new vendor directory. There you see you have like some composer stuff, this autoload file, I'll get back to it. Then you have like one directory per vendor namespace of the packages you have installed, and then one subdirectory per package. So it's all fairly simple. And you shouldn't really have to look into this. There's like once you already have Composer installed, there's a simpler way to do all this process. It's this create project command. So it's a bit like it just does a git clone plus Composer install. Essentially, that's all it does. It's not very fancy, but people like it because it's shorter. So you can like install any existing package by name. So if you know the package name of something, it's fairly easy to set it up. And then after that, you can have like the where to install it and then the version if you don't want the latest. Okay, so one step further is if you actually want to start having new dependencies in your project, or just using Composer in an existing project and like adding dependencies with it. There what you need to do is start this composer.json file, which is like the main configuration and entry point and like the place where you declare all your dependencies. So we have a require block, which is like the main dependencies your project has, and then this require dev, which represents the dependencies you have for development. So that can include like testing, build, whatever. It's like all the non-essential stuff for production that you just need like to do some more at build time or development time or whatever. But so those, if you install with like --no dev, the required dev stuff will not be installed. But by default, it's always installed. So yeah. Maybe I'll give more details on that tomorrow. Okay. Then, as you see, like to get back here, we have every time like the requires just the package name and a version constraint. The version constraint, we have a few things. There is like obviously this exact version match, which is just like an exact version. Then there are different types of ranges, so saying like bigger or equal to that, smaller than, fairly simple stuff. You have wildcards, so you can say like 1.0.anything. That's just a shortcut for bigger than this and smaller than that. And then the most useful one, I think, like the one I would really recommend you use, especially if you build libraries, is this tilde thing that you're probably not used to seeing because it's not really a common math operator, because math doesn't really deal with versioning. But it's actually like it's used in Blender as well in NPM, so you may have seen it, and it works fairly similarly in all places. It just like one simple way I think to visualize it is to say that when there is a tilde and then some number, the last part of the version, like so the last dot something, can go up. So if you take the first case here, it's like it can be 1.0 and the 0 can go up. So it can be 1.1, 1.2, 1.1, but it cannot be 2.0 because that would be changing one above. But it's not like if in that case we could just write 1.star and it would be the same, right? But if you look at the last case, for example, we have like 1.2.3 and like there, if you replace it the 3 with a star, you would get from 1.2.0 to 1.2.9999. But in this case, it's only from 1.2.3 and upward. So this is pretty cool because, like, if people respect this semver spec, like semantic versioning, you can go to semver.org, read it. Like if you version anything, you should read this page. It's not that long, and it makes a lot of sense, and it helps you not piss off people. It basically defines that the first number is for like backward compatible changes. So you, as long as you don't break backward compatibility, you keep the same first number. The second one is when you add new features, you increment it. And the third one is just patch releases, so you do minor fixes, but you shouldn't add anything or break anything. So this, like, if people strictly respect this, it's pretty awesome, because you can say, okay, we know we tested this, like, this project, we tested it with Acme example 1.2.3, and there is actually a bug fix in 1.2.3 that we need, so, you know, let's use at least this version. But if we get more bug fixes later, it's cool. Like, it's probably not gonna affect us. Obviously, sometimes there is a regression. I mean, yeah, it's just life. In most cases, it will help. Like, if people break stuff in any release, obviously, the only option then is to have exact version and test every time you update, and that's a pain. So. Alright, then the third step into your like composerification is to actually create your own package. So, you know, before we had this require, and that stayed. Essentially, all you need to like transition from your private project to like public package, or a package you could at least make public. All you need is really the name. The rest is optional. It's cool to provide it because it makes like more links and packages and stuff like that, but that's it. Like, the name is all that's required to make it an official thing that's installable. And this is still the composer.json, so you just open the file, add some more metadata, and it becomes a package as opposed to just being consuming other packages. And by the way, if you have any questions at any point, feel free to interrupt. Yes. And yeah, one thing to note is the version is not in there. And the reason is that, at least if you use packages, the only way to use packages is actually like in most other package managers, you will like publish versions yourself. But there we kind of automated everything, and we base it on the VCS information, so like on Git or SVN information. So like to release something, all you do is you do a git tag and you push it, and you're done. So packages will go and check your repo and see, okay, there's a new tag, so we create a new version for that, and it will read the composer.json in that tag, and you're done. So you don't actually need to specify the version. And if you do specify it, you'll probably have problems, so just assume you can't. You'll probably be fine. Okay, I need some water. If you have a question in the meantime.
Is this limited PHP code, or it also includes like extensions to PHP?
It's a mean question. So he's asking if it's limited to PHP code or if it includes extensions. Right now it's limited to PHP code, or let's say to code that is just a bunch of files in a zip file, right? Like, technically you can install anything you want, but we don't support like installing extensions and compiling them, etc. The main reason being Windows, I think. Like, well, there are various reasons. I mean, it's already sort of a pain to manage on Linux because you might have dependencies on some packages that will, the names vary between the distro you use. So it's already not so easy to manage, I think. But yeah, the main thing is that on Windows it's going to be impossible, pretty much. Like, yeah. Sorry.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like we could do it just for Linux, but I don't like having things that only work in one platform. Like, I think it's a bit sad for a tool that should be universal. And but that said, I forgot what I wanted to say. Maybe we'll come back. Was another question?
What about other type of libraries like JavaScript libraries? Or
Okay, it's another mean question. This is sort of been planned and discussed a ton in the last year and a half, I guess. But it didn't really happen. The main reason, or like the main excuse I have for it not being done yet, is that there are just like there are many ways this could be done, right? But one is that we say, okay, we build a new repository for JavaScript packages, and you can submit your jQuery package and then install that with Composer. That just creates more mess, I think. Like, what we really want is the jQuery guys to publish their packages themselves, so that when they publish, like when they release something, it's immediately there. You can use it. The problem is there is not really one like winner in the front-end JavaScript package management field. Like, there is Bower, there is this Volo, I think. There is components. There is probably a bunch more I forget. So I'm kind of waiting for the dust to settle and for like one of those to be the winner. But it seems like every 6 months they just make up a new one and all migrate there. And so I don't know. I wish it would be done, and like if you could require jQuery or whatever package from your PHP package, it would be awesome. But I'd much rather build support for this like package manager into Composer rather than having our own repository of packages. I hope that's a good excuse. Okay, I'll continue for a bit. So, one common problem with installing stuff, and especially when you don't have like project level dependencies, is that sometimes someone installs like I don't know, like let's say install PHP unit on one machine, and then someone else installs PHP unit. He gets a new version, starts writing tests with the new version, and the other guy gets the new version of the code, tries to run the tests, boom. If it's just the test failing, it's not too bad. But if you actually have like production stuff that's based on some exact version of a package, and like either different developers don't have the same version, or the production server has a different version, or whichever thing happens that makes it not exactly the same everywhere, you're gonna have problems. Like, eventually it will happen, and you will lose an afternoon just debugging why the hell is it breaking just on that machine, and it turns out it's just some stupid dependency that's different. So what we have in Composer is this log file, which is called composer.log. It's just a JSON file inside, but you don't have to look. So it lists everything that is installed. So whenever you just update your packages, like your dependencies, it will list everything that's installed in that file. So what you should do is you should commit it. I'm gonna say it once today, I'm gonna say it 5 times tomorrow, because many people don't commit it for various reasons that don't make sense. But in most cases, they just didn't understand what it was good for, which is fair enough. It's not necessarily self-explanatory. But so if you commit it, and then the other persons in the team that get the new code, they also get this new log file. And if they run composer install first checks if there is a log file. If there is one, it just ignores completely the composer.json, and it will install exactly what's in the composer log. So that ensures that everyone has the same versions of everything. And then, yeah, so that's that. It's simple, but you have to actually commit the file. Otherwise, everyone has their own composer log, and it's useless. So as I said, like this will really help you with not having those weird inconsistencies between versions, and you'll save yourself some time and nerves. So autoloading. Who is still using a custom autoloader or writing require once statements everywhere? Maybe you don't have to raise your hand if you can. Don't want everyone to blame you later, but it's really bad. Like, I hope you can see that it's bad, or I don't know. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're happy that way, and it's okay. It's just, I have pretty bad memories of it because it would always fuck up at some point. Like, you'd always mess it up. Eventually, you're gonna have a conflict, or you have to use require once everywhere. But it's really boring because you need it in every file, and then it's not so efficient, etc. So autoloading has been around for quite a while, but surprisingly, not everyone jumped on it. And with Composer, we really tried to make this a commodity. Like, I mean, I want this to, like, if in 5 years we say autoloading and nobody knows what this even is, it's awesome. Like, ideally, I think it should have been part of the language. Like, it would be nice if it was just, like in Python, you have these modules, and it's just like the language enforces that. And obviously, it's like it's a balance, right? It's a pain in the ass in Python because you have to figure this out before you can do anything. In PHP, you get the nice flexibility, and you don't have to know really much before you get started. But on the other hand, you don't get this structure enforced. So that's why we have these PSRs and whatever, which try to force some structure into people. You can argue whether that's good or bad, but I think for Composer it's nice because it gives everyone a same understanding. And you get also a very easy way to configure the autoloading in the package. So what you do really is, like, if you use PSR 0 right now, you just define the namespace prefix and where it will be found. That's it. So like any class that starts with Acme example in this case will just be autoloaded from that directory, and you just don't have to care. So we support like different things. Like there's the class map one, which will basically find any class that you have anywhere. You just give it a list of directories or file names, and we'll scan them, find the classes or interfaces in there, and just make them autoloadable. So there was this vendor/autoload.php file that was created by Composer, if you remember, and this is the only one you should require. Like, I think maybe stupid, but maybe missing something here, but in most applications you really need only one require, and it's this one. Like, then it just makes everything available. I mean, that's it. And if you do have functions, like you can't autoload functions, but if you still write a bunch of functions, which is fine, there are two ways. One is to wait for PHP 5.6, which may have function autoloading. It's not sure yet, but it's an option. The other way is to use here files. So if you type files instead of class map, and then you list a bunch of PHP files, they will just require those. So like in this file, there will be a bunch of requires for those files. So it's not really nice because they're loaded every time. So it's a bit meh, but if you just have like a few of those in your project, why not, I guess. Then one note about tests. If you're actually like having a bunch of tests, which I guess you should, usually you have like maybe a different namespace or they're in a different directory. And like some people tend to define them here, like to have like the source directory and the test directory. And this is not so nice because it means you're just polluting the autoloader of everyone using your package. So a better way to do it is to have this like bootstrap file which will require the autoloader and just add a new namespace to it or add a new directory to the same namespace. That works just fine. And yeah, that will find your classes and it won't pollute anything. Okay, so if you're using private packages or I don't know, I think that's about the only use case by now. Like everything open source is on packages. I think nowadays, like it used to be that some people were a bit going on their own, but I think they gave in to user pressure. So let's say you want to have private packages, you will need to define a new repository. So by default, you have the packages repository that's like implicitly registered, but you can add some. So the way this works is you just like declare those. We have different types again. So there is the composer one is the one that's used by packagists and Satis. So it's like a fairly efficient way to communicate with composer because it already has all the metadata. And then I guess the main useful one you might need is the VCS one, which is like it's what internally packages uses to synchronize all the packages, like to find all the new versions, etc. So it's like, I wouldn't use this for private packages, I think, because then you'll have a ton of them. But what you can do is, if you fork something, like if you have to have your own fork for whatever reason, be it patching it or just, I don't know, you had an argument with someone and you need your own fork. Unless you really want to maintain it long term and have its own name and like, if it's a proper fork in the godly sense of forking, but not like just a little patch for a couple of weeks, then you should do it that way. You shouldn't submit your like half-assed fork to packages because that's just polluting everything. Like a lot of people do it either with just like test packages or what do I know, and it's not nice because people use the search there, they find like 3 different versions of the same library because like 2 of them are forks that are completely not maintained or not up to date. Just someone was testing something. It's like, it just creates friction. So as much as you can, just use that to make tests, and that's it. Then if you want to disable packages for whatever reason, you can just have one that says packages false and it will like remove it from the default. Then another one is if you need, like, for example, for those JavaScript packages or anything that doesn't support Composer, you can like inline a definition of a package and say, okay, like I have this package available, or like pretend it's available and then install it. It's not really nice. I mean, if you need this, you're gonna have problems at some point. I mean, we don't support this fully, I would say. Like it works, but it's a hack, so do it if you must. But a better way is usually to nag the maintainer to add a composer.json, and then you can just use it as a normal package. Okay. So just to recap, and to make the distinction once again between install and update. Install will use the log file if it's available. If not, it just installs the dependencies from the composer.json. When you do update, it will try to update every dependency to the latest possible version. So there, at that point, it ignores the log file and will just update everything and rewrite the log file with the current state, like with the new state. And for production, and I messed up there, you should have like there should be a --no dev, like --no -dev, that ignores the required dev packages. Like it's not a big deal if you don't do that, but it will just be like less code installed on the production machines. And then you have this -o or optimize autoloader thing, which currently what it does is it scans everything, like even if it's an autoload defined as PSR0, it will treat it as a class map thing. It will scan all the files, find all the classes everywhere, and generate this gigantic array with class name to file name mapping. The theory behind it, and I say theory because it's not clearly proven, is that it's not theory. It does make like finding a file for a class name much faster, because obviously it's just an array lookup instead of like iterating through a bunch of namespaces, finding the path associated, checking if there is a file there, etc. So it's a lot faster to find one class. The problem is you have to add the time to load this gigantic array with all the definitions. So depending on how many files you have, and depending especially on how many useless files you have, you might actually have more time spent on loading the array into memory than on finding the classes otherwise. So it's a bit of a balancing act, and it's not the best solution for sure. It works for certain projects, so you can try it. Is there a question or just okay? So yeah, that's the current state. It's not the best, and I hope in the long term we can have more optimization strategies, and let you choose and say, okay, for this project this is probably better. But it's also going to be complex, so we'll see. So, quick state of the union. We have a crap ton of contributors. I don't know how many. That's cool. I mean, it's over 100. I don't know. I can't screenshot everything at once anymore. But I think even GitHub doesn't show them past 100, so I stopped updating the screenshot. But yeah, we have a lot of contributors. That's really nice. A lot of them just really contributed small fixes. So I don't mean to diss them. I mean anyone can help, even as small as it is. Like be it a typo in the docs or anything. So if you want to contribute, feel free. I sometimes suck at merging pull requests in a timely manner, so don't take it personally. It's just there is a lot, and I only have so much time. But mostly if it's like small fixes, it goes a lot faster than here is like 500 new lines. Please review it, because this usually takes me an afternoon to review, try, and fix it, etc. Otherwise, regarding the adoption rate, we have almost 17,000 packages. Packages. Dumb name. Don't do this. And that's also very cool. I mean, I don't remember when we crossed the 10,000 mark, but I know the site was launched like in September 2 years ago, so it's about 2 years old, and for at least 6 to 9 months it wasn't really working. So I mean, it was very, very, very much alpha. So it's pretty cool. I think that like within a year and a half to 2 years we got to this amount of packages, and a ton of people are using it. We had like 11 million installs or updates or whatever, like new packages installed by people from pretty much all over the place. Like I mean, looking at the web stats, I think there are like 1 or 2 countries in Africa that had 0 visits, but other than that, we cover the whole map, so that's pretty awesome. And yeah, like I guess pretty much everything is using it these days. Not all the frameworks yet, I think, but they're getting there. Like usually their new, like their upcoming major version is using it to some extent. Like Drupal is sort of gonna be using it even. WordPress, they're totally ignoring us still, but the user base is using it like despite the core developers, so that's cool. Yeah, I don't know. MediaWiki is using it. It's awesome. That's that. And then yeah, a bunch of platform as a service providers do have support. I can't stop tracking it, so I'm not sure at this point which do, but like yeah, if you're using one of those, then hopefully it works for you. Quick word on the roadmap. As I said, I kind of suck at merging pull requests, so I don't want to say how many there are open right now, but it's kind of bad. And I'm here like, on holidays. Thanks for having me. No, I try to check my GitHub email still, but it's a lot. So eventually we'll get there. So one thing is, yeah, some improvements to the repository format would be nice, although that's mostly done by now, I guess. Now we mostly need to fix the SSL situation in PHP, and some stuff is not easy there, but yeah, that's we'll get there as well. Regarding mirroring GitHub, like it's been one problem. I guess in the last 6 months there have been more and more GitHub outages and like DDoS attacks and whatever. So it's something that usually people ask about, is how they can protect themselves from that. Like, because having a deployment that breaks because GitHub is down is not cool. Right now there are some hacky solutions, but that don't really work well. And I have a pretty good solution on my laptop. Like, please don't steal my laptop, because this is not pushed anywhere, I think. But it should, yeah, I should finish that soon and hopefully announce it. And yeah, that should help with like performance and also like helping to make your stuff still work when GitHub is down. I don't know, like, how is the connection to GitHub here? Is it awful or like? Okay, because like I mean in Europe it's more or less good, but we have a fairly decent link. But I know that people like in Asia they're just crying when they install a project. It takes forever. So I do feel for them a bit, and like that's also partly why I work on this. So we'll see. But I hope I can announce this soon. I've been saying that for way too long. Web assets, like there was your question regarding JavaScript. Would be nice, I agree, but no timeline. It's more like wait and see. So if you want to help, you can report issues or help fix issues. It's better. And or just like also trying to reproduce issues is also good, because it takes some time as well sometimes to just reproducing the problems, etc., trying to figure out what's wrong. Because usually that's the long part of debugging, right? Once you figure it out, it's like, oh, two lines changed, bam. And you know how this works. So if you want to find out more, I hope that you're not scared away. Those that never used it, you should use it. It's awesome. So you can find more information, documentation, etc. on getcomposer.org. There is like on packages, you have all the packages, and like everything, like both, well, all three projects are hosted on the Composer organization on GitHub. Then we have Google Group and some IRC channels. If you're old school, should be old school. And with this dumb remark, I'll say thank you very much.